Seagull, I just joined. What just happened? They just announced that they basically canceled the original vision of PvE Overwatch 2. There are no more talent trees or any long-form progression, and that they will now be putting it seasonal, I guess, instead. And there's a lot of aspects of this that are like weird. If you guys remember, one of the craziest parts about all of this is the fact that on April Fools, they did a lot of ability tweaks that I was saying, hey, aren't these just Overwatch 2 talents? I guess these are like sneak peeks of talents coming. It turns out that they literally were abandoning talents, and the one thing they could do out of it was make them a literal joke. That's tough. Am I wrong? The simple truth is that we lost Overwatch 2 PvE to the money printing live service model. Yeah, I mean, it's not just money printing though. I mean, it's the moment that they made the decision to turn around from Overwatch 2 PvE to turning the boat around, turning the bus around, whatever you want to call it, and going back all in on PvP. I pointed this out 7 months ago in my State of Overwatch 2 video, and I said that they will probably just take what they had, cut it up, and put it into seasonal missions. And that's exactly, I didn't expect them to go this far though. I thought that they were actually going to leave like a second team on it and just, you know, let them do their thing in the background while keeping Overwatch PvP as the moneymaker in the meantime, to let PvE develop on the back end, right? And be like, you know, it's taken a long time to get it, but instead it's just so disappointing. It's crazy. PvE was actually copium this whole time. Yeah, it was. You guys were trolling, and it's actually crazy. So what were they doing between 2019 and 2022? Apparently just spinning their wheels on tons of PvE stuff that will now just be adapted into a seasonal model instead. So I guess now we're going to see, I don't know, the equivalent of like a Destiny story campaign where like we get maybe some stuff every season for like a couple missions. And that's it. I don't know. Well, that's not just that's it, because there's also, holy shit. Even the Twitch chat, bro, they are gone. Oh, fuck, man. And that seasonal model already existed in Overwatch 1, Seagull, because we had events like Archives. You're not wrong. We did have events like Archives back then. They didn't have to do any of this, actually. Starwatch is terrible, if that's any indication of future. Starwatch wasn't a PvE event. That was just like it was a cute limited time game mode. If you want to compare PvE events, the PvE events, the reason why this is so disappointing is because the little bits of PvE we see are legitimately good. This stuff like the Halloween event, a lot of people didn't like it because they got tired of like spamming it. I actually enjoyed going for high scores, and I thought it was just well done as a PvE mission and stuff like that. And the gameplay was cool, but it's just one mission, right? And so I'm going, you know, you see stuff like that, and you're like, oh, that's cool. You know, but they've been working on this stuff for 3 years now in the background. I wonder what other cool stuff they have. You know, maybe they get some like cool bosses or this or that, or like a really in-depth campaign. And I guess that's all just now gone. And instead now, I guess it's just whatever hero mastery missions are and story missions. And the scale is now smaller. Like it's really sad, because I can understand why I can understand why they do it, but it's it feels like a very business. I mean, it's the safest possible thing for them to do as a business. They would go, like, I guarantee you, it's something along the lines of like, we can barely pull off one game as a live service. There's no way we're going to be able to pull off PvE simultaneously. We did all this work for the last few years. We can't actually do it. Just fucking send it. Get something out of it by putting it into seasonal model where people can actually enjoy it on the work we've already done, get some return out of it, and then just continuously iterate on the story. But this downgrades Overwatch, like, to be clear though, this downgrades Overwatch 2 PvE and this like big ambition for the game to fancy archives, right? One-off missions that come like every season or through events. And isn't that just basically where Overwatch 1 was? because there's no long form progression and there's no talent trees and there's no, probably because of that, I would suspect no builds and stuff. Yeah, but now it's 2. Yeah, maybe you get what I mean though, right? Also, the fact that they just kind of dropped this on a dude. There was like, I just woke up and I just turned on my stream. They're like, oh yeah, there's an Overwatch dev chat. Oh shit, it's this. And then they just plopped this down. As kind of nuts. I wasn't expecting it today. So they let Overwatch 1 die to spend years working on content. They're now scrapping after all this time and going back to doing the Overwatch 1 content cycle. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, heroes in Overwatch 2 are about basically the same as Overwatch 1. They come out, what is it, 3 times a year? You get maps every other season. And now we have probably more in-depth PvE missions, but nothing that was originally promised. And all of that, I mean, clearly they just view abandoning the Overwatch 1 player base as a massive mistake, and now they're just all leaning on it again and just hoping for the best. But I still, in the background of my mind, though, there's still the big question of, you know, I get it, but at the same time, I really, really wish they could have just kept another team working on PV in the background and then done like an actual launch for it in a year or two. Even though I know it's probably not financially easily for them to do that because they've already spent 3 years working on it. But I feel like the best case in my mind, the whole point of Overwatch 2 was, hey, we know this game isn't done, but PV is taking a really long time. So we're just going to launch this game right now with a minimal amount of content to get it out there, get some money, and then also we aren't abandoning the core audience again, right? And then in the background, we'll keep working on this PvE stuff and we'll just let it roll. But now, I guess what they're saying is that that's just not possible. So now they're just cutting it up, putting it directly into seasons, and they're just going with it. I feel bad for the devs who really wanted to make PvE work. This must really suck. Well, I mean, I agree too, because I mean, the other part of it is, I mean, clearly they're making smaller scale stuff though. So the PvE team, I mean, I didn't think about it from the dev angle of how weird it must be to work on a team like that, to go from like big ambition to small and be like, yeah, so now all you do is just like these little niche, and like you can probably get a lot more creative, to be honest, in smaller scales, because it's not as big of an insane thing. But must have been so many problems building out that PV. Dude, a Titan died, then Overwatch died, now Overwatch 2 PvE died.
The size of that thing!
I like that this has actually killed any and all reason for me to continue playing this game. You know that they're going to make the missions FOMO too.
Well, yeah, I mean, how are they supposed to... How do they keep in... It's not going to be like a campaign. It'll be like archives or something where, like, you know... Like, it'll probably be... They say story missions. What? Do the story missions stay there for season after season? No, it'll be like something like Destiny, probably, where, you know, they're there for, like, 1 or 2 seasons, and then if you don't play that season, then you have to, like, catch up on, like, a wiki or, like, YouTube video, I guess. I don't know. I guess actually that's the lore codex. They say lore codex down here. That's... Yeah, lore codex. That... Either way, you get what I mean. I think they did say it'll be like Halloween where you can go for high scores. Yeah, but the whole point of PV wasn't...
the size of that thing!
What if OW2 PvE was never going to exist? OW1's monetization wasn't working and they'd already said they won't add monetization other than loot boxes. So they make up a story about an OW2 PvE but never actually intend to make, still a few years, change monetization in OW2, and finally come out and say we have PvE at home.
We have PV at home. Well, thank you for the 300 bits, Ruse. Scores like that's lame. I want actual progression. I was hoping... I mean, it kills a lot of the interest I've had for Overwatch, to be honest. Because Overwatch 2, I mean, I've said it a lot. Like, I've played a lot of Overwatch in the last, 5 years. I'm interested in what Overwatch was doing in the long run. Right? I was just kind of playing PvP, but I've played it for like 7 years at this point. So I was mostly, I was like, oh, what's the big thing they got going on? It's, it's PV. I was like, oh, okay, I'll wait for that. I'll play this in the meantime, but, I have a good time, but I wouldn't say I'm like as invested in it. And then now it's kind of sad because I'm just going to play these story missions or whatever they put in next season. I'm just going to go, and man, that's tough because it lives in the shadow of what could have been. You know, you're sitting there and you're like, okay, I guess I'm playing the story mission. Oh shucks, it really would have been nice if this was like a full campaign or like a, you know, like a game that was supposed to be what was originally like a PVE live service game, basically. Right? That was the original Overwatch 2 vision, was to be a PVE game, which is crazy, by the way. It was completely ambitious from the beginning and ridiculous. And it is extremely... Whew.
Look at the size of that thing.
It's so over.
Stop, Tay-Tay. Thank you for the 5. That was a good one. Didn't you play a PV story mission at BlizzCon in 2019? I did. I did play a story mission at PV BlizzCon in 2019. And I guess I'm just getting a lot of those now every season, which is just fancy archives, and that's it. The full Doomer mode? Can you blame me? It's literally their business plan. I was like, yeah, what do you mean? I'm not even Doomer over it. I understand why they're doing it, and I'm pissed. It's also sad because, and I see some sympathy for the devs in chat too. Something like half of the dev team probably just started working there as of Overwatch 2. So they walk in, they're just like, oh shit. Like, what the hell's going on here? We got to do this now. Okay. They're just along for the ride. Good luck. Good luck. There's a new GameSpot article on it. Can you link me? Overwatch 2 PvE mode is being scrapped. I hate it, dude. I fucking hate it here. Dude.
Look at the size of that thing.
If I was working on Overwatch 2 PvE and I heard this was the plan, I would have found a new job.
And it's particularly sad, dude. This is May 16th, 2023. Holy crap. I have so many thoughts on this and I don't even know how to organize simultaneously because in my head I'm like, you guys made talent trees into a literal joke when you put them into the April Fool's thing. You guys launch Overwatch 2 with only 3 characters instead of 6 plus because you work on talent trees just to later scrap talent trees and long form progression. You abandon your core game for 3 years, just turn around the bus and try and make your game live service. You take all your PV stuff and instead of just letting a smaller team try and finish it over the years, I guess it's financially too bad of a decision. So now you're just instead creating a seasonal model out of it. I have so many, it's like so much shit in my brain right now. It's like, what is going on here? Okay, so let's just check out this article. Overwatch 2's PvE mode is being scrapped. Blizzard explains what happened and why. We already know why. Because you guys wanted to make a PvE game. Ended up that you can't make 2 live service games at once. And so you made the safer business call to go back to your original PvP audience instead of trying to actually do something ambitious. That's what it feels like to me. And I know it maybe it's not logistically possible to do 2 live service games at once. And I know I have a lot to say. Let's go with this. Game director and co and executive producer Jared discussed why the eagerly anticipated mode will no longer be released in the future of Overwatch 2. Holy fuck, man. This is so sad.
Look at the size of that thing.
Our devs, we are scrapping to pay attention to the community playing the game community. We are leaving because you lied to us about...
Overwatch is a game that rose from the ashes of Titan, ambitious MMO that Blizzard pulled the plug on. This is basically what I talked about in my video literally 7 months ago. In the wake of this decision, developers of the studio reworked ideas they had for Titan into what would eventually become Overwatch, a hero-based multiplayer shooter that was critically acclaimed and hugely successful. Blizzard's Team 4 is no stranger to picking up the pieces of the shattered project, but this process has been kept... Okay, one sec. I'm going to have to mute these because I'm going in. Although, let's actually do yours first.
Look at the size of that thing.
There's no way we will get every season emo. They might be able to do it for a bit with the stuff that was scrapped, but beyond that they can't even release a new hero or map every season.
I mean, they do hero or map every season. They do, like, what is it? Like, odds, heroes, evens, maps, something like that. That's normal. That's the exact Overwatch 1 content schedule they've had for, like, 5 years prior to Overwatch 2. They've always done that. It's nothing new. Anyway, let's keep going. Yeah, I'm muting alerts, by the way, so we'll catch up after. Blizzard's Team 4 is no... Let's see. The Blizzard way was to keep games out of public view until they were ready to be seen and to release them only when they were as close to the ideal vision as what they could possibly be. That isn't the way anymore, not for Overwatch 2 anyway. When the sequel to Overwatch was announced at BlizzCon 2019, I remember I was there. I played Blizzard Overwatch 2 PVE in 2019. I was there. I think I played with like XQC and like who else was there? I think it was Stylosa, Fran. Who else? There's a lot of people there actually. When the sequel to Overwatch was announced, but the game was also playable, it was with the promise of a PvE component that would allow players to gather their squads and play through narrative-driven multiplayer experience. On top of that, each of the heroes that they'd come to know and love would be reworked for PvE and given progression systems that would allow players to unlock new talents. Also, level those heroes. There was going to be leveling and builds. There were talent trees. In the interviews, they were saying they wanted people to play for literal years. They want it to be a side game on the scale of Overwatch. Like, there's a lot. It's not just... It's a little bit more than this. All right, let's keep going. It was an ambitious new mode that in many ways was used to justify the 2 at the end of the title. Now, however, Blizzard has confirmed the promised PvE component will not be released at all, and a video game director, Aaron Carroll, and executive producer, Jared News. It's also fucking... I gotta feel so bad for these two in particular to be the ones to deliver this news, because they're just trying their best on a yeah. Anyway, let's keep going. It said that the team had made the decision to take the PvE elements of Overwatch in a different direction, detailed a roadmap for upcoming seasons, reveal new hero maps, rebalances, number of story-focused additions. According to Keller News, hope I'm saying his last name right, News, this decision was made for the good of the game and its live multiplayer component. Whether that proves to be true will be judged based on the execution of the upcoming season's detail and its new roadmap. But regardless of this, Blizzard and Team 4 pitched an experience that won't be realized. Blizzard and Team 4 pitched an experience that won't be realized. Yep. It's tough. Which will no doubt confuse and frustrate players. Yep. GameSpot spoke to Keller News about what led to this decision and how Team 4 intends to try and make something good rise from the ashes of a failed idea once again. GameStop, the big talking point is that the direction you're taking out of PV, that you basically aren't doing it. Is this the correct way to characterize it? No, I mean, there's still... I'm not even going to read the... I haven't even read the answer. I'm just going to say they're going to be like, hey, we are doing it. It's just in a seasonal model that fits, you know, what we can pull up, blah, blah, blah. Is that the correct way to characterize it? It's not happening more and you pivoted away. I think I'd characterize this slightly differently. What we're doing is part of the team had set out to do, but not the entirety of what was discussed. So the real focus on story mission and that experience as opposed to more open-ended hero mode. So basically, they're taking the story campaign, cutting it up, putting it into seasonal modes, and then cutting out the end game. So what you get is fancy archives every season that is doing the story narrative bits. That's what it is. So it's fair to say that the experience you showed during that first Overwatch 2 reveal is not going to be the one that will be released at any point. Yeah, exactly. So we're definitely not doing the hero mode and the talents and that power progression system. Interesting, they even power progression system is actually words they've actually, as far as I know, never used. But this back end, people wanted PV replayability. They wanted to be able to play PV as their main game. That was one of the main draws to Overwatch 2 was you guys abandoned your core PvP game for 3 years. You turned around, you said you were going to do this giant, ambitious idea about having a PvP and PvE game where you could go chill out and play with your friends, go level some characters, whatever the fuck you want in the background. It was obviously always kind of crazy, but I appreciated the crazy, and I guess it was just a little bit too crazy for them to pull off. When did you realize you weren't going to be able to execute in this way? What was it that led to that realization? This was a process. Development of any game is a process. In the years following our announcement at BlizzCon 2019, we had a really large portion of our team working on the PV side of that game, and I think players of our live running game could feel that because we eventually stopped making content. Yeah, he's not wrong. They were pretty much all in on PV, chat. All in. And now, that was... I mean, if you think about it, the last character added to Overwatch 1... wasn't it Echo? I'm trying to remember. Echo, who came out... When did Echo come out? I want to say it was in early 2020, but it was supposed to come out in late BlizzCon 2019, but they delayed her a little bit. And then for 2.5 years, no content, right? So basically 2 years of nothingness for a live service game, which is crazy. It's been maybe 2.5 years since the last year that we launched. We don't want to be back at the point where it's another 3.5 years since launching a PvP map. Yeah. So yeah, they're running the numbers too right here. So we really looked hard at what we were doing with the live game in service of this much bigger thing that we were working on, hoping to release later. The interesting thing about it is it's such a difference releasing content for players that are playing your game instead of saving up all of that content for one big release they're going to do later. So we came to the realization that this wasn't the right way to be developing for all of Overwatch. It was about 1.5 years ago they made the decision to shift strategy. That's when we rapidly shifted resources on our team to start working on Overwatch 2. That's what came out last October. Yeah, so the cynical part of this is, so we came to the realization this wasn't the right way to be developing for all of Overwatch. This is true. But the absolute, the cynical part of me says, yeah, that's true. But also, it surely isn't the right way to be making money. Because you could just be doing a shit ton of live service and be printing money in the background. What are we doing, guys? What are we doing? And then the corp was walking like, well, excuse me. We got to get this shit together. So they spin out Overwatch 2 and they release it. And then at the same time, though, it is true. They were at its core abandoning the PvP audience for a PvE one, right? That's what was happening. And then they realized how insane that was, and they double backed, and that's how we're here. But at the same time, what we came away with from that first experience was a new value for developing Overwatch. It was a new value for running the team, namely to always be putting out fresh, exciting, fun new experiences for our players. As we were running up to launching Overwatch 2, we realized that we could not build that other game. Interesting, they basically just to say it right here. The other game. The ambition for PvE was so big that he even calls it another game. Right? We couldn't save up all that content over the course of what was looking to be at least the next several years to finish it. And by doing that, pulling more and more resources away from the people that were all playing our game and all the people that would be playing Overwatch 2. This was always how the chat this was at its core. The reason why PvE Overwatch was always insane was because PvE games in general are incredibly difficult. They take absurdly long periods of time to make, and then not only do you have to make it, you have to create the systems to continuously create new content over and over and over, right? And so the problem with all this is like, this is true. It is really, really hard. And no one's ever going to say it's not. And people are saying, why is it taking so long and this and that? The only thing that would like speed things up for them is the fact that, I guess they have an existing IP to work with. But remember, they had to retool the entire engine to even try to get PV to work. You guys remember that? They had to redo this whole fucking engine. And then I can understand this, but at its core, my main complaint is it's a shame that you couldn't just have another studio / dev team / whatever you want to talk about continuously make PvE, because I still think dude, I would have loved to play that game. You guys talked about it. You'd already committed to it. It's a shame that you're kind of taking that and cutting it up and putting it into seasons instead of just having the resources to do both. And I know why they don't want to do both, because that's we'll see. They don't want to do both because it costs an insane amount of money. It'd be way too risky because live service games cost an obscene amount of money, and there's like all these business considerations, this and that. I get it, but they fucked up. Apex Legends did that for mobile, and now it's gone. Yeah, I know. It would be really difficult. They couldn't justify it? Yeah, I don't think so. So we made a decision later last year that we would focus all of our efforts on the live running game and all of our PV efforts on this new story arc that we're launching in Season 6. Now, on top of that, to keep all of our PV efforts, all of our co-op efforts invested in our seasonal releases rather than a box release. Which everybody's kind of been talking about it, right? The moment that the decision was made last year. Yeah, that's the timing, chat. that they started working on PvP Overwatch 2. Remember? They turned it around and they said, we're going to start working on PvP Overwatch 2. That timing makes sense. I think that timing was also around the time Jeff Kaplan left. Presumably the resources, time, other necessities that you would have needed to make PvE were factored in when you originally came up with the plan to create this game. What has changed since then? Now that you're in a position where you can't do it? I guess this is a general answer, but I think it's solely applicable here. When you plan originally, it's based on a general idea and direction. Then as you develop a game, it's not developing a piece of bank software or something where there's a finite set of functions I have to have. When you get into the meat of it and you start feeling it out, it's like, okay, well, is this fun? Is this good? Is this original idea, the thing that we're thinking about, is going to be awesome? And then you iterate on that until you find something you're really excited about. Once you're kind of in that, okay, we have a good idea of the direction we should go. The question is, well, what does it take to get it there? And so I think if you're building a game where you're taking the exact same engine, the exact same team, the exact same crew that's already shipped that same thing, you're doing the version 3 or version 4 of it, it's pretty easy to plan really well in advance. But for games like this, it's tougher because the team was building something that was totally different than anything they built before. True, I mean, there was a PvE versus PvP. These story missions are significantly different than archives or other ways that we've told stories inside the game before. I don't know if the players will see it that way. Because it's true, but I think that people will think of it kind of like fancy archives. And so developing those, what it takes to do that, the technology required, the people required, the iteration required is all different. So I understand that people think it's probably relatively simple. It's definitely not, and especially because what you don't want is to try to build the thing, get it out the door, and move on. You want to build something that really resonates and people love. So I guess my take is just as the team learned more about what it took to make this, is learn more about the time, the iteration, and the technology required, just became clear the schedule wasn't going to work. Yeah. I think the scope of the hero missions was really, really large. Yeah, it was. And what it was going to take to finish it was going to be pretty remarkable, massive lift. You think about making a game that is supposed to be almost its own standalone co-op experience that people are going to be able to play as a main game. And not just how you put all the content into that to finish it, even just a small piece of it, the talent trees, 40 to 50 talents per hero, over 35 plus heroes, looking at thousands of talents to make everything just to get the game out the door, plus all of the content and the missions you'd be playing to do that. It is a gargantuan ask for a team. And then on top of that, you need to run it as a live game, so content has to continuously come out for that side of the game. Yeah. In reality, what we were looking at was running 2 separate games at the same time with a set of heroes as the piece that is shared between the 2 of them. And as we started to get further and further into it, obviously our players could realize they were pulling focus away from the live game. It didn't just look like there was a definitive end date in sight where we would finally be able to put a stamp on it, or that end date was years away, and it no longer felt like we could be doing that to our players. Or we could be doing that to the live game that we were running. And that's when we took the moment to shift strategy and put everything into the live game. We all knew this. How are they just realizing this now? Well, I mean, this decision was made a long time ago, probably. I mean, the sad thing about all this is the absolute necessity that, you know, they know that no matter what, the PV has to be live service and therefore requires a full live service team just by the nature of modern gaming industry. And so because of that, I mean, if it was an end thing where they could just be like, yeah, we're just releasing a campaign, you just pay $30 for it or $40 or whatever, they'd probably just make a shit ton of money and be happy with it. But that won't make them more money than taking the campaign, cutting it up and putting it into seasons. And no one is going to play an interesting PvE game for potentially years, as they said above, without it being live service, because PvE games exist on the nature of consistently adding content, right? That's how games like Destiny work. That's how games like World of Warcraft, where Blizzard knows this better than anybody else after working on WoW for, I don't even know, 20 years almost at this point. So again, though, the question isn't, you know, you're making 2 separate games, and one of them is basically going to be a PvE live service game, and the other one's basically going to be a PvP live service game. The question is, it sucks that you couldn't just make 2 teams work on it, considering how, I mean, it feels like you have a very interested audience. You have a very, very, you know, not many games that come out that would say PvE. You say the words PvE live service and people don't get excited today. Overwatch, though, I think they would get a little bit interested. At least it feels like they're, I mean, I'm a little more biased as an Overwatch person. So yeah, and so people are like, yeah, I would love to play Overwatch more. You know, PvE, fuck yeah, let's go. And then it feels like such a missed opportunity. I wanted that too. You want to build something that really resonates, people love as a team, learn more about what it took to make the PvE mode, is to learn more about the time, iteration, and technology required. Just became clear the schedule wasn't going to work. The saddest part about this is that all these upset fans are still going to go play more Overwatch. That's not true, though. The poll of PvE Overwatch, and I mean this in the most honest and like polite way possible, guys. Overwatch as a franchise is like, let's say Overwatch as a franchise is like this big, the amount of highlighted text. Overwatch PvP is like this big. You understand? There's a lot more people who are interested in Overwatch than people who want to play a really hardcore competitive PvP experience. Okay? And so PvE Overwatch, after you have so many people who are interested in the franchise, the IP, it's kind of a freebie to walk in and be like, yeah, we should do something that's PvE a little more chill, you know? And I think there's a lot of people who are not into hardcore PvP games that would love that type of experience. And to have that experience downgraded from something that was supposedly essentially a full game of PvE to, hey, now you're going to get seasonal story missions and some other cute story missions is really, really disappointing and really, really sad. And it's not just disappointing and sad for the existing audience that was prepared for it, but also the potential audience that no longer, I mean, maybe this game that was supposed to hit that audience and bring in such a massive, in my opinion, a new audience that would not be interested in PvP. And now instead of having that as its own part, it's just being used as like this entry point into PvP. So it's definitely going to be a little bit strange to me. It sucks. I think there's always going to be a lot of frustration about how we got here because Overwatch has always been a live game. So people are going to think, well, you know that you knew this was a live game, yet you pitched this other Overwatch game, and then you justified the 2 on the Overwatch title with that. Ooh, yeah, I mean, not wrong. So we're in a situation now where the game is what it always has been. It's evolved in some ways, but a sequel was released, and that sequel's justification hinged on the PvE. Why did that happen? Oh, wow. That's a great question. We've talked a lot in the past about Overwatch 2 and how different it is from the original game, even just being free to play and swapping to a 5v5 team format and all the new content we've developed for it. To me, that's the biggest change we're looking at here. It's not just that we have some of the same heroes in the game, it's the way we're writing the game and how we're looking at the game going forward. Hope that the roadmap we've released is just something that illustrates that to players. Okay, well, let's keep going here before I start flaming. We have a lot coming out this year, and even if you look at Season 6, it's the biggest season we've ever launched in the history of Overwatch. We have a new support hero coming out this season. We have a new game mode. Oh, new game mode. Didn't confirm that until now. We've never released a new game mode as a seasonal update ever in Overwatch. I've kind of... Push doesn't count. CTF doesn't count, I guess. It seems like a technicality because you've kind of done a lot of cute game modes. Am I right? Because this is like one of those technically, it feels like a technicality because it's like you guys have done a lot of game modes, but maybe not a core game mode, I guess, is what they're trying to say. But so what they're going to say is Overwatch launch because I played an Overwatch beta. That's when they added control, and I'm just a boomer. Anyway, let's keep going. I understand what they're saying. It has 2 new maps coming out. Flashpoint, running a PvE event that season. We have a whole new type of PvE content that we are releasing with single player hero mastery missions. Overwatch Anniversary is running another event, and then on top of all that, we got the start of a new story arc with the new missions, story missions, cinematics, and other lore content such as a lore codex. It's all packed into this one season, and this is the future of what we're trying to build or bring to Overwatch 2. That's what I hope players can take away from this experience. The shift in the way we want to develop for this game and what we want to put out for our players. I mean, basically what Keller is arguing here, I think, is that the 2 isn't actually about the content. It's about the fact that we're back and we're doing a live service model now, and we're actually adding content again. And we are legitimately adding more than ever before, because now we're doing new game mode. We're doing a PvE event. We're actually supporting it consistently again, all this stuff. But the players don't look at it like that, because the players look at it and they go, yeah, that's what you did during Overwatch 1. You guys were adding the content constantly. Your story missions, we had archive events. We had heroes every 3 months. In Overwatch 2, you still do heroes every, every 3 to 4 months. You still do constant missions. You do the same thing as Overwatch 1, except you put in a battle pass. You put in new live service monetization, which is fine. I'm totally good. People are going to flame live service, this and that. I'm good about, all of that stuff. I understand the devs need to be incentivized to make money. But it definitely doesn't justify the 2. And the 2 is specifically there for PvE. And this is just dodging. And I understand the twist into yeah, it is live service. It is a shift. And that shift does deserve a 2 to them. And I understand it is a new direction and everything. But I think for me, it kind of doesn't. Just to build on that a little bit, I think it's interesting thinking about this over time, coming to the team a little bit later, seeing the state of things, and building that plan to go forward, because the original pitch was this big monolithic thing that releases. Oh, yeah. Jared didn't work on Overwatch 1, I think. I think he's new. So he's the new executive producer, which means he's the person who gives all the, basically the deadlines and everything else. He's the creator in my mind of the roadmap, I guess. That's my picture of what I think he does, but I don't know exactly. As all this pressure and expectation set against it, and really the decision that we've made was to not walk away from PvE or to totally sort of abandon this side of the game. It's to move into a model that we know we can deliver on. See, and this right here is my core issue, because you can't deliver the original model. And so there's 2 decisions. Either you scale the team so that someone can deliver on that model, or you change the model and keep going with one team. And so it's like, I get it. It's kind of, it is to move it into a model. They can't deliver on this with one team. It's impossible, right? It's like going to someone like Destiny or World of Warcraft or anything else and being like, yeah, you need to make a new MMO, but you have to have one team to do it, right? Imagine going to like Fortnite and being like, yeah, you guys have to make Fortnite 2 or something, but you have to do, I mean, Fortnite's a hilarious case because they actually did the reverse Overwatch, where Fortnite started as PvE and then they kind of abandoned it and went all in on PvP and made billions of dollars. So that's a little bit more ridiculous. But yeah, the point is, though, it's 2 games. You need 2 teams, 2 big teams to do that. So that's why I say it's disappointing that they couldn't do that. We know that if we get into the seasonal cadence, we can release things during seasons in a way that we can plan for effectively and that we think is going to be really exciting for players. That, more to the point, gives us time to adapt to the next thing for players before you release it. And I think moving away from the idea of this one big singular PV release moment into a, no, we're going to do PV stuff all the time. We have all these plans. Season 6 is 3 different flavors of that. And we're going to have a bunch of other versions of that coming up and seasons after that. For me, that's really the important thing here. We want to acknowledge that it's not the thing that people were expecting, but we also have high confidence that we can deliver in the way that we're shifting now, which for us is really exciting. You can never ask anyone to take your word for it. So the hope is that once we start releasing this stuff, season 6 players can see and believe it too. I have legitimately full confidence, actually, that you guys are going to come out with really cool PV stuff. That's why I was excited for the full thing, not a seasonal model, because I know it's going to be good. Oh, anyway, but now it's like, this thing's going to be really good. I can't wait to play it for like 2 days and then maybe never play it until next season. You know what I mean? And instead of having this really, really big, cool thing where it's gonna be like, man, this is really cool. All right, I'm out. So, and I know it's going to be good. I don't have any, and people can be like copium, whatever. I don't care. I don't have any doubts because I've always enjoyed PvE Overwatch. I think the gameplay fits PvE playstyle really well. You have like tanks, healers, DPS. You have so much potential within this company to make something really cool. But yeah, let's keep going. But okay, wait, before we keep going though, here though, not wait for this big singular moment, if that makes sense. If you give them the constraint of being like, hey, you can't, for financial reasons, business reasons, corporate reasons, whatever, right? you can't scale your team to fully deliver on this big idea, then yes, this is basically the only thing they can do, right? This is legitimately like, what else are they going to be able to pull off with one team, PvE and PvP? Business wise, they don't have a lot of options, and it's like, it's kind of stupid. It's so stupid to look at it like that, though. And I know, I hate it. I hate it. The small indie company. That's what I mean. It feels like they should have the resources to pull it off, right? That's what it kind of feels like. And so, you know, but if I put myself in, you know, the developer shoes who are making it, and I go, okay, if the constraints from like upper level corporate or this or that, is that you can't scale your team. You have one team, but you have to deliver on 2 games. It's not possible. It's just not. So obviously they're going to spin this and they're going to be like, okay, well, what can we do? We still want to do this PvE stuff, but we definitely can't do a full game. And they go, okay, just put it on to seasons because we already have seasons. It's the best we got. That's what but it shouldn't be like that. That's what I mean. It's just weird. Hollow responses. I don't think these are very honest responses, to be honest. I don't consider these like, there's a little bit of spin from like, but no, I mean, they're pretty straight up. The fact they're even taking this interview is pretty straight up. There are a lot of live, here we go. There are a lot of live first-person shooters out there, and you've always been competing for attention. The thing about Overwatch 2 that was really exciting for me and for a lot of the fan base was PvE. Yep. It was a big swing for the team. The distinguishing factor. What is the impact of not having that, and what would you describe as a big swing for Overwatch 2 now? My things I've always loved about Overwatch, and I think it resonates with universe and world. Okay, yeah. All the heroes we've created, all the heroes and characters. Yeah, it's the IP. Yeah. I think why a lot of people are so invested in Overwatch PvE or Overwatch co-op content is because we're not really able to deliver a ton of that story in our game, which is standard PvP gameplay. And so I think that for us, the side of PvE that we really want to continue running on is what Season 6 is, the start of this big narrative where people do get to find out a lot more about Overwatch, and they do get to find out more about what's happening in the world, characters in the game. So we're really committed to the PvE side of the game and delivering that story. So to be clear, though, this means that they are committing to a seasonal campaign, which is probably going to be like you log on similar to Destiny, where like you log on at the start of a season and there's a big mission or something, and then maybe every couple of weeks, maybe there's like a small mission, and then you like progress your story, I guess. Right? That's what I assume it has to be. But the problem is that naturally is drip feeding narrative content, and I'm sure the missions and stuff will be good, but compared to what it could have been is very disappointing. And it really, to me, because of the background of having archives events, does feel a little bit like having just a fancier version of archives. On top of that, we have multiple cinematics coming out this year to help us set up that sort of and you know the Blizzard art team is probably going to fucking hard carry this shit. No offense to say any, the Blizzard cinematic team's about to walk in and be like, guys, code red, shit's hitting the fan. They're like, release 5 cinematics. Like, guys, like they always do. No. I'm not saying like conspiracy theory shit about releasing. What I mean is like, they're like, oh, fuck, guys, this PV stuff is looking rough. We need to make sure we have a lot of cinema. They've probably been planning this for the last year, being like, hey, guys, when we finally get this PV stuff out, we got to make sure we have a lot of cool cinematics, because their cinematics are always so good. And they know, dude, and then people get excited. And the art teams are always so good. Apex Legends did this PV model 2 years ago and then abandoned it after a few seasons. You're right, actually, they did. I remember running around, there was some small story missions. But Overwatch fits PvE gameplay a lot more than Apex Legends does. We have I wouldn't say way more interesting characters, because Apex has actually been developing their lore and story in the background for years now, and Overwatch kind of hasn't, because it's been AFK for a while. But Overwatch is a very, very good universe to build on and like do this type of thing with. So I'm not too worried about that. But anyway, we'll see. The multiple cinematics though is going to be funny, just because I know they're going to be good, and then people will be hyped up, and it'll still be a good time, but it's disappointing. And there's more to come. There are other pieces of the story like features we're bringing to the game. Another one that we're doing for season 6 is our lore codex, where players will be able to, if they want to, dig in a lot more into what the universe is all about. So I hope that players can see that we're still committed to PvE and we're doing more with the story we've ever done before. We're just doing it a different way than what we originally talked about. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you guys are going to do your best. I just don't. I was really hoping for more than a seasonal model story where I log in every season for like an hour and then maybe I do like a hard mode if it's like Halloween and I try and get a high score and that's it. One of the most exciting things for players when they saw PvE was the characters, and you're pitching something really interesting. Different ways of using their abilities that seem specific to PvE. Yeah, they had talent trees. We had damage types, builds. We had a lot going on. It felt exciting to have this new twist on heroes. Is any of that coming back? Is there going to be opportunities in these PvE modes to play these characters differently, or is it going to be largely familiar in new context? Keller, we would love to see more of that in the game, but while that was an integral part of our hero missions, we're no longer doing those. But we had put a lot of work into our hero talents, and there were a lot of really exciting things, not just with gameplay, but with the fantasy of what a hero was when we could start interacting with the hero that way. So we would like to bring those back in the future. It's going to take a different form than being part of a new co-op game experience. I said it before, I'm going to say it again. How ridiculous it is that you guys built out talent tree. Okay. How ridiculous it is that the hero design team was taken off of, this is obviously it's in the past, can't change it, don't care, still raging. They took the hero design team off of creating new heroes. So they launched Overwatch 2 with only 3 characters because they were working on talent trees. They then scrapped those talent trees. And now they say they're not coming to the game. But just to add some salt to the wound here, they put some of those abilities on April Fools. Remember April Fools when they did some of that stuff with the fancy abilities, and I was sitting there playing and going, oh wow, this stuff is cool. I wonder if these are talent tree abilities. Do you guys remember what happened on April Fools where they had different abilities? And I was like, this feels like a preview to talents. It turns out they knew they weren't going to be able to do it. And so there's something just, it feels really fucked up in my head that you guys knew you couldn't do anything with talent trees. You abandoned it and you couldn't do anything. And then you just made it into a literal joke meme. And it's like, fuck, man. And I know that you just put it somewhere you could, but it's like, fuck. More broadly speaking, you've probably done a lot of work on PV. How much of all that is going to make its way into PvP or repurposed? I know people often think repurpose is bad, but at least it'd be in the game. Okay, I agree. Repurpose, at least I got to see something out of any of the ability work and anything that was already done in the game, right? At least I got to see, but it's at least a bad taste in my mouth because there's April Fools. Okay, that's the only thing. There's a lot that went into developing PV, and it's not just the content we made. Some of this is tools and technology. Yeah, because you guys spent a really long time making a new engine to make PV work. I remember. And so if you look at Junkenstein's Wrath of Bride from last year, that was using all of our new mission technology we had developed for Overwatch 2. So the PV content that we develop in the future is going to be using all the technology and tools we created before. It'll be using new enemy ecologies that we've developed for it. Overwatch 2. There are a lot of big story mission maps that we're going to be coming out with it. And then we've talked a lot and have a lot of plans about different ways that we can bring some of the other content forward, whether it's talents for heroes, even some of the missions that we started developing for that release. But it's all going to be coming out seasonally in a different form. I mean, that's a TLDR of everything they've said, right? We can bring some of the other content forward, whether it's talents or even some of the missions, but it's all going to be coming out seasonally and in a different form and with a different purpose. So we'd like to repurpose some of it, and we'd also like to use some of that technology to build a bunch of new stuff for us also. And I think the breadth of experiences that we've been able to deliver this year are significantly different and more interesting than a lot of the live events in Overwatch 1 had. That's true. I mean, I do think that's true. Then I think a lot of that is because of the work that went into PV and the engine revamp. So going forward, I think you should just expect to see a lot more of that, a lot more pretty wild seasonal events where we experiment with stuff. A lot of the non-mechanical stuff like Battle for Olympus, where we're augmenting hero abilities, things like that are what you should expect to see a lot more of in the future. So just a lot more cute seasonal modes. But again, cute seasonal modes are cool, but I don't expect to play them for more than a couple days. And that sounds like that's what they want, right? So PvE, whether a stated goal or not, was looking like a tool to broaden the appeal of the game, with the thinking that people who can't or don't enjoy playing in online competitive environments could do single co-op and have this interesting, unique experience. We were just talking about this earlier, chat. Holy crap. That means the Overwatch player base diversifies and grows. What does axing PvE and reintroducing some of those ideas into the PvP framework mean for the ambition of broadening the appeal of Overwatch and getting new players in? By the way, just like a shout out, this interviewer, who did this? Timur? I don't know. I think it's Timur. You are a god tier interviewer. Good job. Scrolling. Jared News. Yeah, this is a really interesting one for me because I think if you only enjoy single player or PvE only experiences, then Overwatch is going to be a little bit tough for you right now. Yep. But once we get into this sort of mindset of frequently releasing PvP and PvE content, event content, and where every single season has something really interesting for people to play and a lot of variety, I think that can still be a good jumping on point for people who may not love hyper sweaty PvP matches, or who just really just want to see some cool story content with characters they like or whatever. Yeah, I mean, it's jumping on point. Yeah, I get it. For me, it's a combination of being free to play now, which is inherently removing a pretty big barrier for a lot of people who can't just spend the money to buy expensive games, combined with the fact that we're trying to diversify every single season to have a bunch of different experiences that people get to jump into. So if you're the kind of person that wants to grind comp, that's totally cool. If you're the kind of person who wants to come in, play some arcade, and do a cool co-op seasonal event that I can do, that's awesome. We want there to be a lot more. So yeah, play some arcade seasonal modes. Okay. So while I don't see us bringing this huge audience of PvE only diehard shooter players, I do see us being a really appealing game for anyone who just loves fun shooters and likes to learn new heroes and try out different stuff. So yeah, it's kind of a different approach, but I think our goal is to make this game as welcoming as possible for as broad a group as possible. The point is, though, I mean, I'm a hardcore player in every game I play. I would say I'm like the opposite of a casual player, right? So seeing something that I was really interested in diving my teeth into and getting really into it, it turned into like, oh yeah, we now have this really appealing game for people who love shooters and like to learn different heroes and try out a bunch of stuff. It doesn't feel like it has the depth that I want because it's not built for it. It's just fuck. Are you okay, Seagull? No, I'm sad, man. Everything is so disappointing. Big sad. Yeah, it's big sad. It's big sad too, because I'm sure the story missions and cinematics and everything will be legitimately good. You know what I mean? But it doesn't matter if that stuff's good if it's just like a tiny bite-sized piece they give to you once or a couple times. He's like, oh yeah, take this, and it's like you're starving. You've been waiting 4 years. You haven't had dinner, and they're like, here, have like a cookie. And you're like, yep, there you go. You're like, wait a minute, I want more. Ugh. PV was a big part of our shoot. People are going to think, well, those devs are going to get laid off or move elsewhere. What is the impact not doing PV anymore going to have on a team? I was wondering this too, actually, because they did say at one point they had two teams, one team working on each, and I was like, so what does that mean for the PV team? I guess they're just the ones that now make PV seasonal mode. That is God, this guy is so good at asking questions. As a person who spends most of his time talking about organizational issues, one of the really cool things is we're able to take a bunch of people who have awesome expertise building new enemy types, big PV missions, and big PV worlds, and integrate them into the live game team with everybody else. Oh no. Oh. So instead of having this big monolithic PV side and a big PvP side, now we're just bringing everything together in a group on what is our live experience, what is the season over season experience, and how do we have people who specialize in PvP and specialize in PvE work together to create these awesome things. So there's no adverse impact on the team. We weren't letting people go who were working on PvE. On the contrary, we were really excited to bring them in together with the rest of the folks working on events to figure out how do we use your unique superpower to create an awesome thing for a season. So working on these roadmaps are getting longer and longer, and all these people are involved. I actually think it's super exciting from development. How do you have the team structured? And I think there's a lot more we could do with everyone's powers combined than what we could do before. Okay. Man, you can say it like this, but as somebody who wanted big PV missions, big PV worlds, and to see it directly say integrate them into our live game on a seasoned experience, fuck, modern gaming sucks sometimes. Ugh. Blizzard has always been a studio that puts out high quality games, and if a game isn't going to make it, we just never see it. It's always kind of been the way it is. This is a very rare look at a process where you tried something and then you realize you failed. How do you think that reflects on you as a team, company, as a studio? Oh boy, that's the last question. Every team at Blizzard is a little bit different. Team 4 is unique in a lot of ways. One of the ways that I think the team is unique is the direction we're heading is just this push to be much more open. Very true. But they've been really open. Holy crap. Now, I don't know another dev who just walks in and just, accepts this, it's just like, yeah, let's just go get roasted by an interviewer for the, the shout out to the devs and also the interviewer. Again, you're pretty fucking sick. Managing editor at GameSpot. Yeah, you own. Holy shit. All right, going back. Let's read it. One of the ways I think much more open, much more honest about how we're developing, and much more sort of transparent in what's working and what's, sounds like it says, and what's not here, but he forgot to say it. Since I've joined, it's been a big push. Aaron is writing blogs every 2 weeks about how the game is going and what's changing. We have a lot of people from the team out on socials talking about the details of their stuff. When people complain about matchmaking issues, Morgan's there answering questions on Twitter. Yeah, good luck, Morgan. I'm sorry for the Force 50-50s. I think and I hope that it signals a shift in the team, the mentality of our part of the company that is really just about building this experience alongside players, as opposed to building it on our own and then handing it to players. And so what I really want to see is that co-development model, for lack of a better way to put it, grow and grow over time. This is not the kind of thing where we just give you the tablets that's there. Please play this incredible thing and enjoy it. We want every single season to be something that is built on all the learnings from previous seasons and all the feedback we got from players before. So my hope is that it signals a really healthy shift in the way that we develop and release the game. This is all true. I'm down. Like, as somebody who no-lifes video games, I'm generally a fan of seasonal models. I just wish that the seasonal model for Overwatch PVE was something that I could actually enjoy for more than like 2 days at a time, is what it kind of sounds like. There's a reason why we're being more transparent here. We want to be able to give players more context into our development process. We want people to have more context around why we have made this decision. It was a painful decision for this team to make. That's a fucking understatement. God, that must be the toughest call. It was really hard for us to go through this experience. We're all very passionate about the things that we work on, and we're all really passionate about the game. And part of that passion is to ensure that everything that we're making is right for our audience. So what I hope people can take away from the roadmap, the video we released, Oh, right. That's the thing that we were watching earlier. This thing we were watching earlier, right? Dude, I'm like, and from things like this interview is that, yes, we know it's tough when games change or when things are reduced in scope. Yeah, that's what this is. But at the same time, the people that are playing our game right now are playing a PvP game. Ooh. My belief is that the reason they're playing the PvP game is because they like that game they're playing. So it's up to us as a development team to continue to make that game as good as possible as it possibly can be. And that's the real story here. How do we take the resources that we have, the team that we have that is so passionate about the game, to make what people are playing the very best version of it that it can be? That's our focus, and I hope that's what the takeaway can be. Yeah, but that's the point. You could have done that from, I mean, the sad thing is everybody's just going to be like, well, yeah, you should have done that from the beginning. The moment PUBG and Fortnite were blowing up in 2017, 2018, you could have just gone full free-to-play live service, gone all in on PvP live service, and then you could have done this stuff in the long run, and then, people look at it and they're just, people are going to be mad for the years of development time lost. And then even when Overwatch 2 came out, the idea that, okay, we're getting Overwatch 2 and it's not finished, but at least they're working on PvE in the background, and now knowing that the PV at home, yeah. And the thing is, and this is the biggest part right here. How do we take the resources that we have? The people that are playing our game right now are playing a PvP game. Everything that they talk about feels like a specific trade-off. The more resources you put into PvE, the less PvP has, right? It's either one or the other. And it's a shame that right here, how do we take the resources that we have? It's a shame they just don't have more resources at a company that is supposedly as big as Activision Blizzard to just make 2 fully fledged teams. You know what I mean? For something that people were genuinely interested in, that I feel like would be very, very successful, on top of not stopping on PvP. And so when I hear this takeaway, my takeaway from all of this is not that, you know, to rage at like, you know, Jared and Aaron or like any specific things, but I think this situation is garbage. That we have such an incredible possible game in the background here that they've worked on already for years, that they have to pull the plug on essentially and just create it and just put it into seasonal model because they clearly don't have the resources to do both. And I think they could, though. And I know that might not be like and some people are going to be a lot more mad than I am. I mean, I don't know about more mad. I'm pretty fucking pissed, but I have a lot more sympathy for the developers in this case because these were devs who actually tried to do it. They all in on PvE for like 2.5 or 3 years. And they're like, holy crap, this is so big. I don't know if we can do this. And they turned the bus around. We're like, guys, if we keep going, we're not even going to have any player base at all on Overwatch. Like, we're going to kill our game. We didn't release content for 2 years. We're fucked. Right? They're still not actually releasing content? They're releasing content. They've basically gone back to Overwatch 1 cadence plus a little bit more. Right? You get more limited time event. This is the most Overwatch has ever had in its history of its game. This is true. They are all inning on current Overwatch. Where's my video I put on this? Just so I can suck my own dick on stream for a sec. Back in other words, instead of playing an entire PvE campaign and going through the PvE in-game as it drops, it will likely be cut up and sold in seasonal battle passes. 7 months ago. Was I fucking wrong? Even though Aaron Keller says it's the same vision, I'm personally going to have to see it to believe it. Telling compelling stories on a live... Yep. He knew, aware. I told you. I mean, it's not rocket science to predict this back then, chat. I'm just going to say I told you so at least once, even though I didn't want to. But yeah, I'm still disappointed. It's scripted. We all wanted to be aware. Well, I don't think that... I still think I was wrong by the way, say seasonal battle passes. I don't know how they're going to monetize it. Wait, wait, how are they going to monetize it? Wait. Wait, how are they going to monetize it? Because they probably won't be able to just skins. You think it's just going to be skins? Yeah, it'll probably just be skins. Because, oh, well, now that the scale has been toned down, maybe they don't need to have any of it paywalled because now it's just random missions. So it could just be, like I said in the video, my original idea in the video was something like oh yeah, $10, but if you pay an extra $5, you get PV. But it's like, nah, I don't even think they do something like that. I think they're just gonna just do it fully. I mean, maybe fully free. Who knows? God damn. It doesn't matter. It does matter. It still does matter. They're still going to have, because even though I'm really disappointed in all this PV stuff, for me, the reason I'm so disappointed about it is on a personal level. I've played so much Overwatch PvP over the years that I don't know what really keeps me interested anymore. Playing ranked and doing that type of thing. Like I used to be a pro like back in the day, right? So, I mean, I could just sit there and get good at ladder. It's like, okay, but I was really interested in PvE, right? That was what I was super interested in. I enjoy it, PvP. It's just, it's okay. Like after playing it for so long, it kind of got old, right? But now that PvE's here, it's like, so what's my future in Overwatch supposed to be as a player? I'm like, well, I'll occasionally get addicted and go on binges, as I always do for years. But then in between, I was hoping that I would just, you know, enjoy the PvE a little bit. But now I guess it'll be log on in a new season, play PvE for like a few, maybe a day, maybe 2 days, maybe only an hour or two. Maybe they'll have the score system from Halloween, right? So you get some high scores, and then you come back when the character whenever the new character for that season, or I guess it's every other season, goes to ranked, and I guess that's just, yeah, I guess that's it. I don't know. I guess I'll just play with my friends more, but I think for me personally, I'll definitely be taking it a little more casually going forward. Because I was really looking forward to this, so. Go to the BNet forums. Oh no, dude. No, okay. Dude, this is Seagull Pepe laugh. Wait, what? What are you linking me? Anyone be shocked if his eventually scrapped? I don't think that it would be. You'll hardly be surprised. Considering we've been growing the team with the express goal of supporting both PvE and PvP, I'd be tremendously surprised. Oh no. Oh no. I feel so bad. When was this posted? 11 months ago. Oh man, and now you guys are linking me this. This decision was probably made around that time period. Oh man, that's so sad. I feel bad for Andy. There's no way he could have known. The decision was still being made around that time. Oh god, dude. That PvE isn't scrapped. Okay, stop. Don't get technical about it, guys. Okay, don't get technical. Oh man. Corporate Andy doesn't know? Well, I mean, was that a year ago? Didn't they say they made this decision like year and a half ago? So, I mean, they were probably still finalizing that decision. So yeah, that fits the time frame for a person to not know. Yeah, that fits. If anything, it's actually just more sad seeing it from a developer. Alltail, thank you for the 1 year. Also, wow, I've had a lot of things going on in the background. Let's unmute alerts and start catching up, I guess. This PvE announcement is a hype killer. How to kill a live service. I called this a year ago. The talent trees and hero missions canceled. Oh no. Proof Blizzard is boosting players. God, why is there so much juiciness on the Battle.net forums? PvE is supposed to breathe in new life. Dude, it's true. It's true. Now we get glorified archives with little replayability. 10,400 posts. You guys are so dedicated. I'm hyped to uninstall. Oh my god. Holy shit. Oh, this more than under delivery. They outright haven't made anything to ship. They have, but apparently because there's no end in size is a bad thing. They want to leave the question blank on the freaking test. I mean, all the excuse works in school. Same guy just says, I'm uninstalling in every thread. This is the stun day. I mean, dude, I wasn't, oh god, dude. I called almost a year ago that PV would end up being nothing more than Archives 2.0. I was met with many rude responses. Just want to say I was right. The cynical gamers, in fact, were right. But they shouldn't have been. Let's be real. Stop playing the game, loser. Hello there, fellow doomer. Glad we continue to be proven right. I can't believe this is really happening. Oh no, not Snowman Man 11. Oh no, he has a snowman for a picture. Oh no, they're hurting Snowman. I can't believe this is really happening. Oh no, not Snowman. Ah. Does this mean they put Overwatch and life support for nothing? It does, buddy. It does. It's literally just archives. Unbelievable. Thing is, I think it's still going to be more than just archives, but it's not going to, it'll be like a little bit more, but not what people want. I'll still enjoy it. It'll just be like a fun time, but not like not like a whole game. That's a problem. The Copium round 2? Wait, what? Why is it Copium round 2? Wait, what? That guy had 10,000 posts, bro. That's like not even that much here. That's, yeah. It's had to be a recent decision too. There were PvE sections of maps discovered during betas for the game, and I remember Dev in an interview MA saying they were still developing talents for new heroes late last year. Yes, they were. They were up until about a year and a half ago. You're right. Oh no. They didn't have to hype this announcement. Hype up PvE? They hyped up PvE like 3 or 4 years ago, and people held them to that because they talked about it. And so now when they double back, this is the cost of hyping up and doubling back on something that you were wrong about. That's it. Someone said we never got weather effects. You did get weather, all right? You did get weather. You played it at BlizzCon. I did play it at BlizzCon. You're right. So the 2 is completely pointless. Thanks, Doomers. I've seen the light. All right, well, shit.